welcome to the Disciplined Troublemakers podcast. I'm your host, Scott Shagory. Here on DT, we talk with technology CEOs about scaling great technology companies. Today, we have Jad Jebara, the co-founder, president, and CEO of Hyperview. He oversees business development, operations, and overall sales. Hyperview is a DCIM, which is a data center infrastructure management platform that streamlines operations. Previously, Jad was the Senior VP of Finance and Admin at Pier 1 Hostings, where he led finance, supply chain, and IT. Jad is also a Fulbright Scholar. He holds an MPA from the University of Texas at Austin and has several accounting designations. Today, we're going to be talking with Jad about the challenges and the opportunities of scaling companies within data centers and in the cloud. Jad, thanks for carving out time to talk with us today, and welcome to the Disciplined Troublemakers podcast.
You are welcome, Scott, and delighted to be here and with your audience.
Yeah. You know, as a bit of a kickoff to expand on what it is you guys go ahead and do at Hyperview, kind of a little bit maybe about the secret sauce, how you got started, the story behind the origin story, as I sometimes like to call it. What does that look like for you? Because you guys are a few years old. So what made you decide to be CEO?
We are. The two questions here, I think. One, why did we start, and why do we do what we do, and why did I want to be a CEO? We, like any entrepreneur out there, we found an opportunity and we decided to build the tools we wish we had. So you mentioned background, Pier 1 Hosting, which was a phenomenal experience. I joined Pier 1 Hosting back in 2007, where hosting and co-location and building data centers was at the beginning phases, if you may. Mm-hmm. We took the company, turned it around from $35 million to $650 million in 4.5 years. I managed one of that company. And one of the key challenges that we faced scaling at a global level with Pier 1 and managing the complexity of multiple business lines, if it's co-location, managed hosting, dedicated hosting, and cloud, is how did we share insights as an organization? How do we eliminate surprises? We had so many systems, but so many silos. And I remember still back in 2010, I went on the adventure of looking at DCIM tools. Right? It was the hype cycle, if you're familiar with Gartner and all that. It was the platform of it all. And what we realized very quickly was the following. The legacy or traditional players had your traditional monolithic application. The care and feeding for that application was incumbent upon us. It was very limited in scope, gave us a sliver of what we needed. We needed visibility across all layers. The infrastructure layer, around power and environmental, then wanted to go up the IT layer, virtual layer, and all that. We wanted that coveted, if you may, single pane of glass, right?
Yep.
And we also realized it was very expensive. It's in the millions of dollars. It's painful to implement, and 18 months deployment cycles, and very hard to train on. After the exit, we looked at this as like, hold on a second. We scaled multiple organizations. We had multiple exits. One of the co-founders came from Pier 1 Hosting. He was the VP of Marketing, a phenomenal brother to me. And the other one is Rami, is our CTO, other co-founder, is my actual brother, smarter one, computational physics and on the security side. We sat and said, the scale, the industry is growing, needs a cloud-native platform. If you look at every vertical out there in every functional or business area, if CRM used to be on-prem, became cloud. CMDB, configuration management databases, ERP systems, Outlook, everything is moving towards the cloud. And to solve the complexities around managing the global infrastructure and looking at the critical infrastructure with how do you solve the confluence of challenges, if it is deployment at the edge, if it's cybersecurity, if it's compliance, if it's sustainability, if it's talent shortages, you need to think differently about this, and you need a platform that gives you that visibility. So in a nutshell, we looked at this and said, what is our mission? Our mission is to make critical infrastructure think. And by that, we said, well, how do we accomplish it? We said, let's go reinvent DCIM. And probably I'll expand about that, about the platform and how we reinvented DCIM and the visibility, what makes us different. And the problems that we wanted to really solve is to really focus on the sustainability aspects of the industry. And the sustainability, when we look at it, it's the three pillars of sustainability. How do you make the critical infrastructure more profitable? How do you reduce the environmental impact by looking at the carbon embedded construction costs, by looking at the supply chain, scope 3, looking at the power, and optimizing the assets by providing that kind of insight and actionable intelligence in enhancing the social equity. So, long answer, we wanted to build the tools we wish we had, and we wanted to make it in a cloud native, following the giants before us that built those wonderful platforms that we use today as a cloud native platform.
Yeah, no, it's a very, on the one hand, a very common story. I think oftentimes what gets missed is just how much of it is actually needed and how much of it just simply didn't exist. I go back farther probably maybe than yourself, where we managing a NOC and doing some other work where we were in a more traditional client server environment, and it was to an extent we didn't have as big a problem, but we had many, many problems with 145 facilities around the country and satellite systems and other stuff pumping that data through 24/7. So, yeah, just a lot of complexity. There really wasn't anything in the way of a kind of a 360 worldview that didn't cost an absolute arm and a leg, that wasn't going to be, sustainable. So, yeah, it's always surprising how you think in retrospect that didn't exist, but that sort of stuff just didn't exist in all sorts of domain areas. And as I've, was digging into DCIM in preparation for today, it was just another reminder of that the world is still a very physical place, that there are obviously infinite layers of how that works, and where you want to play in that particular domain area can be hugely powerful and impactful, which is great.
Yeah, and it's funny. We in the industry we talk about all clouds live in data centers, right? So you think about all the global infrastructure, and every application that we use is reliant on data centers. And you look at COVID, we couldn't have survived COVID without data centers. And you see now the growth that we're seeing as an industry with the boom or bubble, depending on your position on it, but. The AI impact on the infrastructure and the global deployments.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just outside of DC in Northern Virginia, and 10 miles away from me is Loudoun County and Chantilly, where, there are, as you well know, like a huge number of data centers, and everyone is here. And every time I ride out on my motorcycle to hit, obviously more rural areas of the state, there's another center moving up. There are more cranes. There's all sorts of stuff. And then, even for me as a resident, the number of times that Virginia Dominion Power has asked for some sort of resident basically price increase to help pay for that in some way, shape, or form is significant. And they just asked for another one for a 50% spike on top of a 100% spike, only a couple of years ago. So there is absolutely a deep need for it. But who pays and when, as always, is the challenge. And you guys play an really important role with that. Or even ESG isn't just a nice to have. It's actually something truly important, not just because there's a jurisdiction that's asking for it. So as are people who are wanting to buy companies like yours, private equity, others, it's kind of one of those not nice to haves. It's absolutely essential. With what you guys are doing, where you are right now, and obviously have probably had a very busy 2025, what does scale look like to you guys now? There's obviously your clients who are scaling or hyper scaling, but then you're obviously doing or deciding where you want to play. What does that look like for you, for either products or geography or the visibility that you want, if that's a good entry point?
So one of the biggest bets that we made is, with a cloud native platform. So that enables us a lot of flexibility how we deploy the product. The second bet we made is product-led growth product, which means that all the investment went into building the product where the customers can self-deploy, can get onboarded without the pesky, expensive professional services and long implementation. So that results in the ability to scale globally wherever the cloud infrastructure is available for us in a SOC 2 type 2 environment where we guarantee the security, the resiliency of the platform, and disaster recovery within the same jurisdiction with all the data, privacy, all that allocated to it. So we are deployed in multiple regions in the US. We're deployed in multiple regions in Canada, Europe, Asia Pacific, United Arab Emirates, and we're looking at global expansions as well. For us to expand and build a cluster in any region is probably an hour to 2 hours. We make it cook and optimize for several days, and deployment instances after that is seconds. A customer can start with a free trial and can scale from 300 assets to millions of assets. And that's where scale is starting to manifest itself specifically last year and this year, where we are starting to see the global players where they say, well, I have 2 million sensor points. I have to truncate data. My customers on the hyperscale want data resolution 5 years at a minute resolution. My existing infrastructure does not scale. And for us, we say, well, it's a configuration parameter because the architecture of the product allows us and affords us to do so. And that's where we did the heavy lifting. So global deployments is one aspect of scale. The other aspect of scale is the ability to scale the product, both on the depth and breadth of the product. We are 10 inches wide and 100 miles deep in the infrastructure side. Mm-hmm. And we've been adding products since the launch of Hyperview on May 28th, 2020. Mm-hmm. We're releasing features on average every 7 weeks. And we commit to customers. We publish our product roadmap with details for the next 6 months. And the 6 months at a higher level, we seek feedback from customers, and it's all collaborative. And with that, the ability to deploy remotely. We have hundreds of customers. I'm yet to travel, or any of my employees to travel once to help in an on-prem deployment. Right. Global deployments, all done in a remote manner, in a fraction of the cost of what our competitors have to price, because they use a sales-led growth model where they have a lot of friction and a lot of cost built into the deployment cycle.
Yeah. What does because you've got obviously a number of logos on your website. Who is or what is your ideal customer? Because you've got education, you've got enterprise, you've got some others, or is it really a data infrastructure size or footprint? What is that, so I can wrap my head around it? What does that look like for you guys now in terms of what your ideal looks like?
Yeah, so we are seeing traction in several verticals. One, the financial industry. Some of the world's largest financial institutions under NDA, we don't have their logos, are our customers. Mm-hmm. We have global infrastructure operators. You think somebody who has 100 co-location facilities or more have struggled with the issues from the legacy DCIM around scale, around API access, around the ability to provide hyperscalers the ability to ingest the data into their platforms. Mm-hmm. They came to us, was like, we want the one API to rule them all, like one ring to rule them all, the Lord of the Rings, right? And that's another vertical. Higher education has been a very good vertical for us because most of the universities have their supercomputer clusters, have their physical infrastructure and all that. An enterprise that is co-located in co-location facilities. So the beautiful thing about our platform is, regardless if you have hundreds of assets or millions of assets, it scales to accommodate that. And the pricing model, the go-to-market model, is priced per asset. So you don't have to think about, I need $1 million commitment. It is per asset, per year. And you need to add additional features. You always can add it in a co-term, no pressure sales, and in a self ordering manner. And that's where we're seeing, financial, insurance, and healthcare. We're seeing very good traction there. Operators, the co-location, and MSPs, and higher education, and enterprise.
Yeah, no, it's a really nice mix, because I think, again, what's great is you're focused on the software layer, not really on anything on the hardware layer. And I would imagine partner with others who might have gear or equipment that does do that type of interaction as well, where, as you well know, there's huge discussion around NVIDIA's latest, chipset and other stuff, and then just the number of kilowatt hours per device per, et cetera, where all of a sudden your infrastructure could actually be outdated very quickly, but that really doesn't matter to you because you can obviously go ahead. It's really just, an API and a software solution, which is great for flexibility.
Yeah, it's beyond the NVIDIA dilemma and monitoring all that. You think about zombie servers. You think about the insight that you need when you're looking at your infrastructure. What do I have? What is the state of it? And what is running on it? Who's on it? What age of it? What's the power profile for it? What is the utilization on it? How is it secured? Mm-hmm. All of these come into place. If you're a co-location provider looking at deploying AI workloads, one of the blessing and the curse for our industry is as we, the large players operated as a REIT and you have a lot of private equity, the others. But you look at the model has been mostly real estate, right? And it was very successful. I go get an allocation, to your point, and I love your example about Virginia. You go get an allocation for 100 megawatts. You go contract customers to use that 100 megawatts. You get your ROI, you go build another data center. Now, in Virginia, they say the vacancy, the availability rate is about 1%. But they measure it on the contract power. They don't actually measure it on the power utilization percentage or the power capacity effectiveness. It's one and the same. Basically, the IT energy to the design value. So you could have, in theory, a 100 megawatt facility that is only using 20. Mm-hmm. But you're allocated 100. And now you have to think about transmission lines that you, in your locale, need to think about, why am I paying for this? Right? So where the industry is heading, and the iMasons and the Climate Accord has been focusing on that as well, is let's start publishing those metrics. Let's start looking at our impact as an industry from an embodied carbon costs. What is what carbon impact that we have, but also from a power utilization, looking at what workloads am I running? What's the age of it? How can I optimize it? What's the utilization? Should it be in this locale? Should it be in another locale? What is the source of power for that location? Right. And lastly, from a supply chain perspective, the scope 3 aspects. So the industry is starting to wake up to that and starting to look at it and saying, well, we need to start looking at it not from a contract power, but also from a utilization power, IT energy to design. The same logic applies if you're a co-location customer. If you go and lease a pod for, let's say 1 megawatt, are you underutilized? Are you overutilized? Right? And this is where a platform like ours can literally monitor all that for you. That's one of the million sensor points, the calculated sensors that we have, where we say, well, Scott, these racks are underutilized. These racks are going to be overutilized, and you're going to pay overage power based on the power factor, PUE, and overage rates and all that. So, and that's where you start looking at, and I'll finish with this, how you go up the insight level from descriptive, I know what I have, to diagnostic, say something happened, what happened, to predictive, I should deploy or under deploy, I should do this, I should do that, to prescriptive, and then to cognitive, which, AI comes as a big player in that area as well.
Yeah, no, I think, one of the areas that I help with or focus on is the industrial side of the Internet of Things. And there's all sorts of conversations, like this in terms of moving and shifting from one level to the other, from preventative to ultimately predictive, and then to have one where there is some sort of cognitive layer, we'll call it an architectural, whatever the label is, around being able to just manage that in a way that we haven't been able to manage it before to serve everyone's needs, which is, I think, really, really helpful. Definitely. How, is there something, I always like to ask this question, do you think that there is something that is, or what is most misunderstood by the market today about what your company does? Or is it crystal clear given the eyeballs on the industry and the focus, which includes what seems like everyone, PE, major players, strategics, everyone under the sun? Is there anything that you think or the team thinks that's most misunderstood about your company by the market?
I wouldn't say misunderstood, I think, about our company, but I think the industry has been suffering from expensive and anemic tools. So the DCIM, when you mention DCIM, people immediately tend to go, it's expensive, it's hard to use, I don't want to look at it. It's hard, right?
Yeah.
I've got my licks from the previous deployment. The devil that that versus all that. But then we have a discussion, and you get that I did not know this is doable, right? Mm-hmm. So and this is one of the joyful interactions usually, and I tend to join calls and I love talking to prospects and customers, and we're all reachable. All the founders, executive teams, like we're all reachable by all customers. Period. We don't hide behind titles and we don't hide behind anything. And the beautiful thing is when somebody says, I did not know this is possible, and the reason we're able to do that is, from an architecture perspective and from a design philosophy, we said we want to solve the biggest problem. And the biggest problem is to build the most comprehensive monitoring pipeline from every aspect of the infrastructure. So where we invested heavily is building, and without using a lot of marketing buzzwords and all that, but we invested heavily in a multi-protocol agent-less authenticated discovery. That enables you as a user to choose what protocols you want to enable, and that builds a digital twin for every asset. You can have an asset being monitored by so many protocols, and an expert system aligns that, and then you have all the monitoring pipeline, and on top of that, you have a very comprehensive analytics pipeline that builds all the contextual relevance for that. So suddenly your network team is like, I know where my gear is in the physical infrastructure. I know the dependency logically and physically, and I know the power dependency. The power team can see what is dependent and can see the utilization from a power and also cost perspective and resiliency and so on and so forth. IT team and so on and so forth. That single pane of glass, I joke about it. And I say, my job is to give you a cat, although I'm a dog person. I want an accurate, and I want a timely pipeline of sensor telemetry and traps and analytics available for you to consume it in any way you want, right? Your data is your data. Mm-hmm. Ability to scale to almost infinite scale, because we are a cloud native platform, scales with containers and the right services. Mm-hmm. Your data is available for you because we built it as an API first platform. Anything and everything you see in the platform is available for you via API with granular access control policies. We have it at an asset level today, and by the end of the year, early January, we will have it on a sensor level. We will have the most comprehensive access control policy. So if you're a co-location provider and you have hyperscalers, you no longer have to incur hundreds of thousands of dollars on hardware solutions to give them their data. But you can have Hyperview that supports protocols in vendor agnostic manner, right? That is foundational for us to build the AI ability together with a control pipeline. You think about, I spoke about the insight level, descriptive to cognitive. Mm-hmm. We are very clear about our AI roadmap and what we've been releasing, and we started releasing in May. We do not subscribe to AI washing, learn SQL with AI, learn Postgres with AI, we look at AI in two personalities or two personas. One we started releasing, which is an AI assistant that is trained securely in an isolated manner on your data. So you can have a conversation about your platform and ask questions and follow-up questions and all that, and do functions. Mm-hmm. Enable you to learn our product, guide you through it. Our documentation is available in open source, but it's also available for you as a companion. We look at an AI assistant as a force multiplier. Yeah. The second level of AI, we're looking at it from an AI manager, is a constellation of AI agents that can kick off workflows with access control policies and security around that to follow the business rules that you want to do. So what is the misunderstood about us is, if you start looking at casting the wide net and saying DCIM, people have been hurt before. I've heard vendors from DCIM talk about their platform as an albatross on their neck, right? And for us, when customers start working with us, like, your pricing model, I can start free. Yes. I can start with 300 assets. Yes. I can add features when I want in a cold-term manner. Yes. I can plan my deployment for 5 years. Yes. Professional services is almost zero. Yes. Okay. That's different. And then we start talking about AI and the implications of that. The exciting part is the input from customers. So this is why we decided to go on a PLG motion versus an SLG motion, a product-led sales growth, because we want the product to shine. We want it to be the first interaction and the only interaction that is meaningful to customers. Pardon me. I can spend hours talking about my product. I'll be careful what you ask for.
Yeah, no, and that's always a very good sign when someone's really excited about the product. Yeah, it's just always interesting having the sales-led versus product-led, and then just conversation, generally speaking, and then where teams, where industries, where someone thinks from a strategic standpoint or differentiating standpoint, where they want to slice. I think of it as almost like slicing something off, or where they want to be, because usually for most there is some sales-led, even if it is predominantly product-led. But it is interesting to see, firms like yourselves and one other that I interviewed earlier this year, where they are virtually or are in fact 100% product-led growth, where it in fact does go ahead after an initial set of calls and setting some things up and so forth, allows them to play in a way where they can start small and then increment as either they have time, competence, or just comfort level, not to mention budget, to go ahead and obviously add things on with what they can actually handle themselves, which I think is really, key. You help them win, you have their back, and they feel really comfortable about what it is that you and the team are doing for them. Even if you're not interacting with them, they still feel connected to you, which I think is an essential piece of it that just kind of sometimes gets lost. But we're still humans controlling things at the moment. And so, we do make those emotional decisions. I mean, no one gets fired for choosing IBM or Goldman Sachs usually. So there is that defensibility around it, and particularly as a startup or a young company, to be able to do that in a pretty established space, admittedly with a lot of friction, is still quite a big deal. So, kudos to the infrastructure, but the confidence that people have to go ahead and do that sort of stuff too. Because I have managed hardware, and that has been stressful, frankly. Not the hardware itself, but what you have just described, and making those decisions and thinking, okay, is this really going to work? It's why I always loved Cisco. I was less excited about Juniper for different reasons, to then moving on to nothing compared with what is possible today, with obviously a whole bunch of infrastructure being in the cloud. So it really is quite a big deal. And, for those who are risk averse, because if you're in a 24/7 environment and this infrastructure has to stay up, just ask us what happened, what was it 3 weeks ago with AWS, and the implications of that over just something that most of us wouldn't control. Just the moving pieces or moving virtual pieces are huge, and you end up with a lot of egg on your face. And I've had a few meetings where they were very, very difficult explaining how stuff went bad, even when we'd done everything right. And so to have that visibility, I think, is really fantastic.
And we're seeing the mindset in changing around that. We're seeing customers, and this is repeatedly, we're seeing this, where big enterprises are saying, I have 3 implementation of DCIM in every data center because I have 3 data centers, and one of my data centers went down. And I lost access to my DCIM because my IT team didn't set up the DR or high availability correctly. It took me 8 hours to restore that. I want to look at a cloud native DCIM because I want to be able to troubleshoot things when data center goes down, right? Yep. That's one. But the second aspect, which this happened twice now, as you alluded to, enterprise and large enterprise, that is typically slower because you still have to go through security, legal, and all that. We're geared to that because we have our certifications and we have a standard process for that. But one of the funny interactions that I had, and was very complimentary to what we're doing, or complementing to what we're doing, was we shared our pricing sheet. Like my sales account executive, Dylan would send, here's the pricing, you can play around with it, pricing for everything by year, here's the savings for 3-year contracts, here's all that. And this is one of the largest financial institutions. The head of purchasing asked for a meeting, and my sales account executive said, "Can you join us?" And my background, I'm a CPA. I love Excel. I like to simplify things in Excel, and the worksheet represents that. And we started the call and said, "Yeah, we'd love to answer any questions. And very nice to meet you." I said, "We don't have any questions. We just wanted to say thank you for." He's like, "We've never dealt with a vendor that we know what we're getting. We know how we're going to pay for it, and it's clear, and I can plan for it. And I have no questions, but I just wanted to meet the team behind this and say thank you." You're welcome. That was one of the epic moments for us, because we are on the right track. When some of the largest enterprises acknowledge that we're on the right path and how we're going to market, this has solidified our bet on product-led growth, and we continue on that path.
Yeah, no, I think that's always it's a great story, and it just highlights that whether it's finance or other areas, my background's in defense and defense tech, just the levels of complication of most things as it's either perceived or orchestrated at a project level or things like that is such that you kind of just do a double take when you do get that type of response. When, as you would know, certainly better than me, AWS has over 10,000 SKUs. They have people that are full-time at large companies that I used to work for, just trying to strategize. All they do all day for 60 hours a week or more is figure out exactly what it's going to cost, because they can't figure it out. So, it's such a different way of doing things, and where that's a differentiator and an enhancement. It's not just trying to make things easier, which obviously it does. So
we have that mantra and you'll hear it a lot, is less is more. And, I like to sound smart and quote Tolstoy, and there's no greatness in the world while simplicity is absent. So there you go. I pitched it.
Yeah.
So we're having fun doing this, and it's been true joy over the past several years getting that feedback from customer and validation from the market. It's been rewarding, very rewarding.
Yeah, and that sounds great. Well, let's go ahead and just take a short break, and we will be right back. Purple Finch Group helps technology CEOs innovating at the edge of chaos create operational fitness across their technology stack and team of talent. Achieving significant and measurable scale, selling your story, and finding time to think and plan can feel like a bridge too far. So if you're a CEO whose company has found product market fit, but is struggling, or you're a CEO whose company is looking to accelerate existing momentum, we can help with proven blueprints for optimal scale. Shifting from incremental addition to exponential multiplication can be absolutely achieved with less effort and stress. To get in touch, I can be reached at Scott with 2 T's at purplefinchgroup.com. Now, back to the interview. Well, welcome back to the Disciplined Troublemakers podcast. We're here with Jad from Hyperview. So I'd like to take a bit of a different direction here with the second half of the questions here. You've obviously been CEO for a little while. What type of work, the work that you do now, gives you joy and gives you energy?
Several things, actually, come to think of it. One, we love solving challenges. I love solving puzzles, big challenges, and my team thrives on that. Solving the big problems. How do you create a digital twin for every type of asset? How do you make relevance of it, and so on and so forth, and solve the problems that we discussed around sustainability and providing that. Second area that I love to do in my work right now, seeing how the team is cohesively being built around the common shared values and building the competence and the confidence in the team. That is such a joy. We have long tenure and deep expertise and a very cohesive team with no egos. I love that. And lastly, I love meeting people. I love meeting customers. We don't hide behind titles. My booking link, my CTO's booking link, every founder booking link is available. We talk to customers, we talk to prospects, big and small. We love it all, and we every meeting is an opportunity to learn. And that's my personality. I'm an extrovert. I love talking to people. If you ask me, yeah, I'm living the dream right now. I have a wonderful team. We're solving big challenges around sustainability, around making critical infrastructure think, and making AI relevant, and with the right interface and the right consumption model, and meeting people and learning more every day.
Yeah, no, it's always great because it's not always true that a CEO or the founding team, even when they're pushing hard, they're very successful. It can be very tiring. It can still be stressful depending on the types of work, and to be engaged in the way that you are and interact with the team and grow the way that you have is always yeah, it's just always a great experience. It's what one always hopes as a founder and CEO or as an entrepreneur, whatever label you're going to use. But sometimes always can feel really quite elusive. It's certainly true with some of the mostly guys who I work with who have been, just either frustrated, tired, and just need an injection sometimes of the excitement again as to what actually is possible. And it's just not always present, which is great that you guys, have that, having frankly started during COVID, which was no small feat, I'm sure itself. And then now, 5 years or, a little 5 years and a bit later, to still be really jazzed about what you're doing is exciting and fun to hear about. Cool.
We're having fun building high.
What, kind of looking ahead, you've alluded to it a bit. What are now you and the team excited about, say, over the next 18 months? I'm sure as you're a finance weenie and a data weenie, you've probably got specific metrics. If you're comfortable sharing that, that's always fun. But I'm guessing you guys, with your culture, with who you're working with, what that looks like. What are you guys excited about over the next 18 months of what will be, I think, some very significant growth opportunities?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I'm not going to share numbers with you because we're a private company and self-funded, and I want to push to my chest. But I would say growth from a revenue perspective and profitability perspective. We're seeing that we're working with some of the world's largest customers, to be honest, and the inbound pipeline has been just growing, and it's amazing. Existing customers are growing, and that's awesome. That's rewarding to see. Growth from a team perspective, we're adding more team members, and we're looking at possibly having team members in different geographies because of the time zones. So that's driven by success and growth in the regions as well, and growth from a product perspective. And we're pushing in several key functional areas. We made a heavy investment in network documentation, think about structured cabling and all that. And now, we have the discovery on the logical side. We're doing bandwidth monitoring and other aspects to really counter some of the price hikes for some of the network monitoring tools where PE firms just acquired and, went 5x, and customers are tired of that. And that's all driven by a product pull. So our customers are asking us to do that. So growth from a product perspective in that area, and in the area of AI where we made the bet of, from an infrastructure perspective, to build the most comprehensive monitoring analytics pipeline. We the control pipeline to be able to do various functions in a secure manner, and in access control policy enforcement and change logs and so on and so forth. And now it's all about investing in the right AI capabilities in the two personas that I mentioned before, around the AI assistant and the data center manager persona. And that really enables our customers and our users to amplify their impact and have a force multiplier. That's how we look at AI. AI is not a replacement, but more as a force multiplier, an enabler that is trained in a secure and safeguarded manner, and providing you the right insight that you desire to do X, Y, and Z in whatever automation that you want.
Yeah, no, it is interesting, just the whole conversation around replace versus augment, and I'm obviously in the augmentation side of things is where I get excited. Is it driven, on the product side? Is it driven by, customers asking, or is it a combination of querying them, feeling what they might need, or is it also you guys just trying to essentially drive the innovation bus and think, I think we could go ahead and do this for them? They haven't specifically asked for it, but it is something in this area or this area where we could really easily implement that and give them some value add on top of what they already have. Is that kind of how it's playing out, or is it a different story with respect to product?
That's a That's a great question, a beautiful question. And for that, I would quote Henry Ford. If you asked your customers what they want, you would have built a faster horse.
Yep.
You start with the right vision and the right mission. When we started the company and you said, our mission is to make critical infrastructure think. Right? You think about that and say, well, how do you enable it? One, we want to reinvent the category of DCIM to enable you the visibility across all layers, and then enable you to do various functions in an automated manner by driving the right insight. And we'll discuss the insight level, so I don't want to go over it again.
Yep.
And that's where foundationally our product roadmap has been set, and we drive it that manner. Now, with that, we take feedback from customers and we release features fast. We believe in the fail faster, and we have customers who are saying, well, I would like you to prioritize this feature or that feature. Is this feature on your roadmap or not? And in some cases, some features come where we haven't thought about it. The sensor level access control policy, we designed the platform at an asset level. We said, but you have shared assets for co-location providers. So now it's okay, let's build the most comprehensive one, and that's an ask, right? So it is a two-way conversation. The beautiful interaction that we have with our customers, it is a two-way conversation. We publish our roadmap, they give us feedback, they say, well, this is more priority than this, and we take that into consideration because we build that capacity to shuffle things around. But they know exactly what we're releasing and they can plan on it. We have the credibility that we've been releasing features every 7 weeks. And we're always open to learning different use cases and different input. And that just makes our product better. You want the market pull and you want the product pull. In the product pull, I alluded to that with the bandwidth monitoring and in some of the areas where customers are saying, I have this amount of budget that I'm spending with vendor X, Y, and Z. But I need, if it's in here, I don't need them and I'm willing to pay for it here. And that becomes a theme as customers keep asking for it, becomes a theme. So, okay, there is a business case for this. What would it take to enable it and how fast and what we can commit to and all that. But it starts with the vision and the right mission. And that's what drives our product roadmap, and with a lot of input and refinement from two-way conversation with customers.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, historically, for a long time now, we've had what I'll call a software budget that you can obviously go ahead and access as your totally addressable market. And the interesting thing about AI is now it moves into labor and other areas too, and theoretically grows, but how you want to go ahead and bite those things off, and is it augmentation? Are you're really growing skill sets of the team, even if the headcount isn't changing, or you're doing something else, which I think there's a huge opportunity to, supercharge lots and lots of people who are working really, really hard, but could be a lot more efficient and just make life easier for them, which is great. The last question that I have that I enjoy asking is that this is you were a senior VP before, lots of responsibility, but being CEO is a different role. When you go ahead and do that, you've obviously built it essentially from scratch. As being CEO of a company now, how has it changed you or transformed you in any way? Do you think or kind of feel a little bit differently, or has it just been more responsibility or an opportunity to just shape your future and the future of your clients and your team in a way that you couldn't do as, say, senior VP of a company where you were just executing in a particular vertical?
That's a very good question. That's a deep question. Okay. So I'm a framework kind of guy. Let me try to put it in a framework context. I think it changed me in 4 ways, and I'm going to call it the 4 R's. You have 4 R's for recruitment and the 4 R's for assessing partners. We're going to do 4 R's for CEOs. One, I think the difference between being a senior VP, managing 1/3 of a company versus a CEO is you feel the responsibility. Right? You have a lot riding on you. You have every person in the company feeds off your energy. So you have to be responsible with your actions, how you appear. You have to be responsible in understanding how you map the path forward, responsible in deploying cash, responsible in financing, responsible in building team. responsible. I feel responsible, and I take it very, very seriously. Because livelihood depends on my decisions, and that is personal. Second, I'm more a realist. I deal with realities. I don't lie to myself. I look at myself in the morning and say, this is real, this is not. I'm not going to. People will lie to you. You don't lie to yourself. This is the pipeline, or this is the pipeline. This is the big problem, this big opportunity. Became more and more grounded in facts and reality, and we deal with realities. And my team has gotten used to me saying this. We deal with realities. There's no fiction here. This is the reality of the situation. How can we work with this? Thirdly, reflective. The third R, I would say, I reflect on my actions and inactions. I ask myself always the question, what did I do or did not do that enabled something I don't condone? It goes back to the responsibility, right? I reflect on an interaction with a customer. How could this go better? I reflect on interaction with a partner. I reflect, and that you have to allocate time to be able to do. That you have to be intentional. And the fourth R is resilience, I would say. I've been always passionate and resilient about anything that I get engaged in, but what I realized working with my team, with the ups and downs of starting a startup and self-funding and COVID and we don't break. We, as a team that I'm very fortunate to lead, have that part of our DNA. We always find a way. Doesn't matter what it is. Something happened, but let's be real about it. What is the reality? Let's reflect on it and take the responsible action. So I would say, being a CEO, that's how I've changed. I would say these are the 4 R's that come to mind. I'm more responsible, more a realist. I work Excel sheets. I drive them like a freaking Ferrari. And I used to drive an RS4 at 165 miles per hour. If you're familiar with an RS4.
I am. I'm a car fan. Yep. I'm familiar with the RS4. So.
And I sold it when I got my second kid because I was like, drive that fast. But, and reflective and resilient. And that mindset, the team see, and hopefully they see, I would say, and that has fueled us in that manner. So that's how I would answer that question. That's how I've changed, I think, from one position to another.
Yeah, no, it's always a big jump. I think sometimes there was someone who I interviewed earlier in the year, and he said, I did not appreciate. I was chief revenue officer previously. I got to be CEO. And he said, I called up 6 months in, I called my previous CEO boss, and he said, I have to apologize to you for being this being such a pain in the what. He said, I had no idea what was going to be required of me in some respects, and it's forced me to change, or I simply wasn't going to be successful. And so, it's always just interesting we all work incredibly hard and come into various roles with a set of, skill sets and things. And is it, something that's going to be not so much enough, but what do I need to learn and how do I need to shape forward? And I do think if you've got a really good vision, one that's genuinely enduring and that people can rally around, and then you as yourself can go ahead with your 4 R's, which is great to bring that together. It does. It gives you resilience in ways and an awareness level, I think, of where you should be placing your attention and what that needs to look like, which is great.
It is. Yeah, it's one of the things and you alluded to that right now, is you have to have that learner mindset. So one of the things I really enjoy, one other than reading books like The Hard Thing About Hard Things, like when I was reading that book, it's like, oh my God, this is it. Like you check mark, check mark. Like this is, you need to own it. But also listening to SaaStr and SaaS Talk, other CEOs, and you realize that, we all go through that motion and emotion of it, and understand that, you have to own it. Like one of the best things, and to your point, the story, and this is why this triggered this comment from me is, they said one of the best advices I would give to any employee, be empathetic to your boss's workload. Because if you start seeing the world from the way your boss or your manager looks at, then you understand the burden that they have. So I never, I knew the CEO position is hard, but I never really appreciated it until I stepped into that role. And hopefully I'm doing a good job. I'll let my team answer that and our performance answer that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, you can get a sense of it if there's an awareness and an interest in it too. Customers, clients, whoever your stakeholders happen to be, children, et cetera, even dogs notice such things. So, it's just, it's always interesting. I always like asking because I often get just all sorts of really interesting answers that are often what people are comfortable with sharing, very personal and just always enlightening as well. So how can, as a very final question here as we wrap up, what would be the best way for people to reach out to you? Many will say LinkedIn, but I realize you might have something else as a way of what you prefer.
LinkedIn is the perfect medium. I am there. You send me a connection request. My booking link is in my LinkedIn profile. Once we're connected, you can access my availability and book time. Our website, hyperviewhq.com, also my contact information are there. We don't hide behind anything. You can contact me if you need to chat with me. Absolutely. I recently chatted with some MBA students who are doing research on leadership and challenges and all that. Love those discussions. Love to hear from you.
Yeah, sounds great. Well, again, Jad, thank you very much for carving out time to speak with us here on the Disciplined Troublemakers podcast. And to all of you out there, we will be back with another episode very soon. Cheers. Thank you for tuning into the Disciplined Troublemakers podcast, and we hope you found the episode valuable. If you did, please subscribe to the Disciplined Troublemakers podcast on your favorite platform and leave a review. Putting this podcast together is a group effort, so I'd like to provide a shout out to Heartcast Media and their team for all of the assistance they provide with each episode. If you want to get in touch with me directly, I can be reached at Scott with 2 T's at purplefinchgroup.com. Purple Finch Group is the sponsor of this podcast. We have another podcast episode out very shortly. Stay tuned.